GM. It's Monday, July 18th. Could be a big week in NFTs. Moonbirds have some stuff going on. CryptoPunks are creeping up to Bored Apes. We'll have more of that today. Welcome, Tyler. So today on Lucky Trader, we are going to talk a little about this weekend. The punks were kind of flying towards the end of the week. We chatted about that a little on Thursday. There was another big sale on Friday for 2,691 ETH, which was around $3 million at the time. And then now ETH has jumped up 10, 15% since then as well. So that $3 million is, I think it was 3.3 million. It's probably, they've made like 300,000 already if they held it in ETH at least and didn't send it to USD right away. But how's your weekend? Because I think we saw a decent amount of volume. Some people are calling for the bull to be back on, but what's sort of your thoughts from this past weekend?
Oh, I'm one of those people loudly yelling for the NFT bull market to return. It was a good weekend. It was gloomy in Chicago, kind of ruined our plans. But man, the crypto markets aren't gloomy. The NFT markets aren't gloomy. It's a fun time to be in the markets. Yeah. And it's crazy. Just a month ago, punks were at 45 ETH. ETH was at 900, triple digits. People were loudly wondering, are NFTs dead? Was it a one-time speculative bubble? And, since then, some of these assets are 2 or 3x. I mean, punks are up almost 3x in US dollar terms from the bottom. At 85 ETH floor times 1,500, that puts them at, 120, 105K, up from 45K. So anyone who bought that bottom is on a massive trade. But, we'll get into that. I think the macro themes are so similar to last summer. Punks leading the way. Generative art blocks is back. And the sentiment seems to be shifting positive. So it's a fun time.
Yeah, and an art blocks drop just happened. And it just cleared 400, minted at around just under 0.4 ETH. I think most went around 0.4. I tried at, I think, 0.35 maybe, and failed. So it was in that range where you're spending at least 0.4 with the gas. Will be interesting to see following that one along. There was the Factura drop over the weekend that kind of went off. It got up to around a 4 ETH floor. I saw basically has been above 1 for since that first day, really, and people seem to like that one. The GM Studios have seen some pumping with their generative art, so it does seem like a lot of people are moving back towards the art narrative, where potentially thinking not that PFPs are dead, but like, what are PFPs giving you? Like, art makes a lot more sense to the high-end collectors, I think, is part of it. So if we bring up this Project Rankings page from Lucky Trader, obviously we see CryptoPunks leading the way. Other deed will come to that and what happened with the demo over the past weekend. And then there's the Factura and some of these others. So what are you seeing from this board?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty telling board for where liquidity is focused. So punks and the Yuga ecosystem is up top. Those are here to stay. They're hallmarks. Those are going to be in the top 10 every week. I think the X factor, the wild cards, are the 2 art projects which joined the board this week with Factura and Nina's Super Cool World from the Goda Mint Pass. So, I mean, that Factura volume was crazy. I think it may have done 1,800 on OpenSea. It's not even more. It's past 2,500 ETH volume in just a few days. And to put that into perspective, I think last week's Art Blocks Curated only did like 1,300 to 1,500 ETH. So it's doing significantly more volume. It was at 1.1. It ran all the way to 4 ETH. It basically dominated the market yesterday. It's all anyone was talking about. And then now, you kind of mentioned it, the GM DAO, their Mint Pass, I think it sits at 4.75 ETH or so, at least that I saw it this morning. That allowed folks to mint Factura for 0.15. So obviously incredibly profitable. People are realizing that basically all 4 of their mints now have caught some hype, have caught some steam, and people are looking at that mint pass as one that is going to have some real future value and real utility by holding that pass, giving you access to these future drops. So that's a trend. And then Goda's first drop with Nina's Super Cool World.
Yeah.
I have to call it successful. I wasn't 100% sure it was going to mint out. It was a huge supply, 5,080 NFTs at 0.5 ETH. That's 2,500 ETH raise. But it did mint out. The floor early on got to as high as like 1.2. I think pre-reveal it was still like 0.8, 0.9. It dumped on reveal. It's sitting around 0.4 right now. But there was a decent rare lotto in that one. So, I mean, no one's down too much.
Yeah.
Overall, I think you call it successful. And the Goda Mint Pass has been holding up pretty well too.
And I think that what you just said there is somewhat of a theme recently where people aren't getting as down on these as they had over the past couple of months, where things were going from like all-time highs and Ethereum was dropping in price. And a lot of these have somewhat just held, I guess is how I'd word it. We can even look at the Bored and Dangerous drop from last week there, where that's just sort of sitting around slightly above mint. Kingship was another one that was similar, where it didn't have this full-on boom, but it also didn't immediately die. And I think that is somewhat of a bullish indicator. When like these free mints, a lot of those will pump to like 0.05 and then go back to 0. But it's nice to see when these, if you want to call it the better stuff, hold up instead of die. And so that part of it I think is good. One that kind of jumped out to me here on this page, and this is interesting. I don't know if you have a take on this. We weren't talking about this earlier, but Goblin Town on here. So has a great amount of volume on the week, but the floor has been dipping. It's now back under 3 ETH. The burgers have been up. Burgers are now over 50% of the floor and market cap of the goblins themselves.
Oh, wow. And
that has to do with the somewhat immediate utility that is expected out of the burgers. So I think that's why people are holding. But it is interesting to me that there's been all this volume. Seems like there's sweeps happening a lot, but the price of those have gone down. I'm not sure if you have a take specifically on goblins, but just the mid tiers in general, like that's the only one that's even on this list. Oddities, if you want to consider that, but we'll talk about that. They're going to be revealing here in the next couple days. But what do you think about these mid tiers right now, where if they're not generative or if they're PFPs, they're just kind of sitting around. Even the stuff like CloneX Doodles have been like slowly bleeding. But do you have any take on sort of mid-range projects right now?
Yeah, I think a couple things are happening. So one, we saw kind of a surprising dip this morning, but to me, it's all based on the ETH surge. So ETH is up.
In floor prices.
Correct, yeah. Floor prices in ETH terms. We saw like even mutants, right? Like, mutants are down 9% on the week. Bored Apes are at 94, and granted, that's just a couple listings. After a very successful weekend with their demo, which we'll hit later on. But ETH is up 30% in a week. So even with the ETH floor of some of these NFT projects down 7%, they're still up significantly in US dollar terms. Some people are thinking, is this just a relief rally, scam pump, and trying to sell into this, maybe getting back into USDC. So I think we're going to see a little bit of that. It's going to impact the floors of some of these projects. But I think the bigger theme for these mid-tier PFPs is they feel stuck. And like what is going to be the narrative or the catalyst to get them out of this range? And I'm going to keep Moonbirds separated because it's kind of in its own tier right now beneath Punks and Apes. But like the ones at 10, CloneX, Azuki, and Doodles, I don't know. Like CloneX had this huge announcement. I think I've got it. Yeah, that they're dropping these AR hoodies, first edition, augmented reality hoodies to holders of CloneX as well as the Genesis crypto kicks. And there's a lot of drama over that. I don't necessarily need to get into it. But this is a pretty major airdrop, right? And of course, everyone's so spoiled from all just the sick airdrops that have happened in this ecosystem. It didn't move the market. I think CloneX is actually down since this
It
announcement.
moved the crypto kick market though. At least in the short term, it did. They were under 1 ETH and then became over 1 ETH in that hour or two post announcement. But yeah, like CloneX themselves, it's almost like people find there's not a reason to hold them. I don't know. I guess seems like they're giving the utility to these secondaries a little more. Like the monolith might be a better hold than an OG CloneX. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case, but in some of these, it seems like that's maybe that's part of the same thing that I was talking about with goblins. Maybe that's where these sharp investors are mentally changing their minds and saying, go to the thing that's about to have the utility and forget the OG. I'm not sure how do you bring value back to the OG. But yeah, this seemed like a pretty cool one to me. There's also a physical aspect to it. Are you planning on participating and getting one of these cities?
I'm going to try to max this. So if that means, multi-walding, I'm going to do what it takes. I think this hoodie is absolutely sick.
Isn't it private mint though?
So it is first come, first serve.
But you have to hold.
You have to hold a CloneX or the kicks. But I think general consensus is supply is going to be less than 40,000. So if it's only 20,000, then we might have some kind of a gas war on our hands, right? So people are expecting that. We also don't know if it's going to be one per or one per NFT, one per wallet or one per NFT. So there's a lot of unknowns out there. But I'll definitely be prepping for it. I think one thing to note for the artifact ecosystem, and you kind of alluded to it. So there's CloneX, which is the first PFP. The Genesis is from Artifact, right? But then Monolith is the first Nike NFT. And that's where the crypto kicks came out of, which are the first generation digital wearable from Nike. I think they're going to continue to reward those Nike crypto kick wears, and then by default, the Monolith holders, because that's where they came from, and we're going to start seeing more shoes coming out and whatnot. So this is a trend. People should expect this. Like to me, the crypto kicks are their own Genesis set. They're incredibly important on their own. Yes.
They're less of the artifact. They're more of the Nike. And I think they're trying to make that clear.
Exactly. So I think we're going to see like 2 streams come out, I think, from this ecosystem, which is totally fine. And there's going to be an artifact stream and a Nike stream, and people just need to deal with that and trade with that information in mind. But I think what's also important for Artifact, they tweeted this morning, they're only like 2 bullets through that list, and here we are. We're only on emoji code 2 so far for this whole new, roadmap of theirs. So
yeah, is that
there's
true?
There's a ton to come.
Because I was when I originally looked at that, I thought some of the stuff further down had already happened, but are they just saying they're going to happen? Because isn't like there's a vial and DNA? I thought that part had already happened. I'm not sure. Like a lot of these are like price going up emotes as well, so who knows what those ones mean. But yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like they're specifically saying like this is just the second thing out of all of these things we're doing.
How many here? So
there's
still
it's
3, 6,
15 of them,
9.
right?
Yeah, I mean there's like 15 plus. So I don't know. I'm still incredibly bullish on this ecosystem. It's one of my favorites, so I wouldn't be sweating. But it's kind of pulling it back to our original talk. But this didn't move the market for Clone at all, and it moved kicks 20%. I mean, the kicks were at 1, now they're at 1.2. This market is tired of these PFPs, and that's obvious. The liquidity just isn't there right now, and I don't know what's going to change that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm really interested to see, and I don't know if this is the transition we want into, but I'm really interested to see what happens with Moonbirds. After this has kind of been what people have been waiting 2 months for. July 20th has been on the radar for everybody, and you wonder, like, it's gotten down as low as 60 listings. We have the oddities that are, some of them are hatching a little bit. They put out a note that it's just an aesthetic thing. That doesn't mean that it's rare or not. I don't know if you saw some of these tweets. The people have been like putting them together. We're like, oh, we solved what they look like, and obviously I don't think they have. But at the same time, like, what if people are just holding for this nest when it comes? If you don't get anything that's too exciting from the nest, or you do, are we going to see a bunch of new Moonbirds being listed? And has their price only been up because people are waiting for this and they were nesting it now 3 months? So I think this is going to be an interesting one to watch. If it's similar to what we've seen with these other collections, where the idea of buy the rumor, sell the news, is this the news that people are waiting to sell on now with Ethereum at $1,500 again? People were holding this when it was 20 ETH and ETH was $1,000. So now from there, I mean, that's greater than a 2x right now, comparatively, only like a month later. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch. I'm not sure if you want to give your take on what you think is going to happen,
Sure.
because I have my thoughts, but to me, I think it's one that'll be pretty telling what does happen.
Yeah, I think first this is likely the highlight event of the week in the NFT space, with the third biggest PFP project having a major event in the Silver Nest coming. So what do we know? So Thursday, July 21st, Silver Nest unlocks. At the same time, they're going to do the oddities reveal. So maybe starting with oddities, it's a little bit easier to talk through. 10,000 set from Grimplin. The floor price is 3.5. It's kind of been trending in the mid threes, I feel like, for pretty much the entirety of the 60-day pre-reveal window. On the capitalization, I think it went below. It got into the twos briefly. So anyone who's held is doing fine in ETH terms. Anyone who's sold off the gun is also probably a little bit up. I think we're both aligned that this is likely going to be a bearish reveal event. Unless there's some really big utility announcements, which they've already said several times that this is a kind of a sidekick project, a fun one from Grimplin to reward Moonbird holders. This isn't a secondary Moonbird set. Like, there will be a Moonbirds companion set. We think it's Ravens coming. This is not that. So it seems people are kind of holding out for the rare lotto. And granted, I mean, the Cryptos had a crazy rare lotto, right? And granted, that was kind of during some peak mania. There were sales in triple-digit ETH, 400 up top. So maybe people think that's gonna happen here. But I was looking at the Cryptos for. Cryptos are at 2.5. That feels like kind of the resting price for oddities to me, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go to like 2. Unless we get a lot more info about these. If they're just kind of a collectible in the proof ecosystem, I think they're just going to kind of slowly trend down.
And it's been so long since they came out that I think it's almost overhyped in that sense. Like, a lot of these, like, it's hard to live up to that type of hype. 60 days, like, no matter what it is, there are going to be people that don't like it. And it just depends on how loud the fudders are to how these things hold up. And to me, like what you said with the toads, like, I've always expected this to come back under the toads, since they're like Grimplin's OG project, and lower count. This is a 10,000 supply versus that's the 69. So in reality, I think toads should be higher, and that's why I wasn't buying above the toad price. However, that being said, like, I do think the high end of these will go for a decent amount, and we don't get that type of rare lotto much anymore.
Yeah.
So it has a greater upside than most any project right now. If you get a one of these, like, it's a lot more likely that you can sell it for 3x what this current floor is, versus these other projects. So
if not more. And I think we'll see some FOMO ahead of the reveal. Like, I won't be. My prediction is this sits above 4 at reveal time.
On like Wednesday.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people are kind of foaming in this one. There's not really much else going on. This is one of the marquee events of the week. People are going to want to play it. So I'll expect that. But now maybe let's talk about Moonbirds. So this is definitely more up in the air with kind of what's going to happen with respect to the floor price. So as Moonbird holders, we're both holders, expecting more than just the oddities reveal in a new pack of stickers with the Silver Nest. Not necessarily, expecting another airdrop. Of course, that'd be nice, but at least some kind of an announcement about what's coming next. Originally I'll say I was expecting an airdrop. You and I have been kind of talking through it. It would definitely overshadow the oddities if we got a new NFT on the same day that those reveal. So that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And Kevin is a sharp guy. But at the same time, we waited 60 days for this event. The next nest, we think, isn't for now another 90 days. So that's a long time in the NFT space with a lot of other projects which are going to be trending, coming out. Art is going to be hot. There's going to be a lot of ways to spend 30 ETH in that 90 days.
Yeah.
So they're going to need a carrot, to keep everyone in the nest, so to speak. And I think the team gets that, and I think we will get something to keep that nesting ratio high.
I think we've assumed more information about Ravens, but it's almost like ever since that Carson thing, like they don't want to give information about the Ravens. I just think I have always thought it's just been weird that these are both happening at the same time. Like the fact that they're happening at the same time makes me think what else could you get? So it's almost like whatever you do is going to take eyes off of oddities. So, but you don't want eyes off of oddities. So you can't do something that's going to be soon in that sense. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens on that end, because we're not really sure. And maybe with this whole generative art right now is kind of back in, maybe there's going to be something more on the lines of generative art style, but you still go back to there's 10,000 of these, and a lot of anything right now that has been a 10,000 count hasn't done well. So oddities is one thing that is, but that's just because they haven't revealed yet. They're connected to proof. There's still a lot of unknown. I think once you get some more information that is known, I'd assume they are going to try to do something that's connecting if you have a Moonbird and an oddity on things like that to keep them usable. I don't know if usable is the right term, but to keep people wanting to have them. If you're a Moonbird holder, you get benefits if you have kind of like the Kennel Dogs do, where you got this amount of ape coin, but you got an extra 800 if you also had a Kennel Dog. Right. I've sort of just always been expecting something along those lines, where it's just an added bonus to things within the Moonbirds or Proof ecosystem. And then Proof itself, the access passes, we saw them run a little bit recently, but I wonder whenever Moonbirds come out with information, does Proof, the access pass, also have to come out with something around the same time? It's back over 80 ETH, which granted there's 1,000 of them, 940 owners. So a lot of people that have them are just sitting on them anyway. So I don't know if it really matters to it. But do you think Proof Collective owners themselves are going to have any sort of announcement along the same time frame?
Yeah, I think Grails 2 is going to be announced and is going to be coming soon, or at least the announcement of announcement. But man, this is another one that's a great trade, right? We look back at the capitulation in mid-June.
Yeah.
Average price at 50, it's up to 81 with ETH up 50%. That's a 2x. So it's been a good trade. I was pulling this up on Twitter because this is the X factor. I want to say that in some of these articles talking about the Proof team's acquisition of the Divergence Engineering group, that the Social Universe Project High Rise is coming this summer. I think that was leaked. Summers ends in 2 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a major event.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like, so they're moving fast. That makes me think Ravens are going to come into existence either before High Rise or maybe around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, if the oddities command 3.5 ETH, what's our price target for Ravens? Right. For me, it's probably like 10.
If yeah, like right as of now, like I view these as oddities are the kennel dogs of the set, and then Ravens are going to be more like the Codas. Not like the mutants. I'm thinking they're going to be more like the Codas, where they're going to be more interested in like high rise. It's weird to say, but like a pet, but part of you in high rise, like more so. So I don't know. I guess that's how I'm currently thinking of it. Like I don't think Ravens you're gonna get like a serum for them kind of idea.
Right.
And I just personally don't think the 20,000 adding 20,000 to an ecosystem does anything anymore. I think it would hurt if not. So we'll see. It'll be interesting right when I just think they have to be careful with Ravens around the same time as oddities. So maybe they just have more information on them, but they say the date isn't till September or like far out. Because whatever they do, if they announce the next thing, that could hurt the past thing, which was the oddities. So I don't think Grails too would hurt it, but
no,
that's sort of my thing with that.
I agree. I think Grails is kind of separate, but yeah, you're right. So I'm so conflicted now because I'm absolutely expecting a major announcement or airdrop, but at the same time, their hands are kind of tied. So it's going to be an interesting week. Whatever happens, I think it's going to be the liquidity event of the week. But it's interesting, you brought up the other side. Maybe that's our transition to
this is a big one.
The demo from Saturday. So I have a couple tweets. This one from the JRNY Club, I thought was kind of a nice summary of what some of the people who participated in the demo actually saw. I want to say there was like over 3,000, maybe over 4,000 live concurrent players. There was audio. I think one of the big twists was they're all like at one point they're all fighting like the boss, which was a giant coda. Like giant codas were like the evil bosses in this game or world, which I thought was kind of an interesting and fun twist. But all the feedback I saw, sentiment was incredibly positive on this one, and I think people think they're much further along than anticipated. Certainly the engineering team, Improbable, is getting a lot of spotlight in all this, and people are, for a while, the headlines, the influencers 3 months ago were saying, you know how hard it is to pull off a metaverse or a game, AAA game studios, this takes years. Like, this isn't going to happen. Well, now it seems like it actually is probably going to happen. And it's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. So the confidence is building. We saw Punk 6529, his fund bought like a 300 ETH gold coda. So that was a major buy over the weekend. I think the big open question to me is I still don't fully understand like the economics and how a great working other side game translates to value to the other deeds holders. So I think those are the dots we need to connect to see that market maybe move. But again, with 100,000 supply with maybe another 100,000 coming, it's going to be a tough market to move.
Yeah, and it's like, do you need $3,000 to play a game? Is one of the big pieces of FUD right now surrounding it. That's part of the reason why I don't really have interest in buying a deed, because I just think for this game to be working and functional, that's too high of a price point to get new people in. Like, I don't know if this is necessarily a devil's advocate way of wording it, but like 4,500 people, it was good in the short amount of time, but like you need way more people than that for the game to be worthwhile. And if you want to be mainstream and not just like the current holder base, like you need ways for people to participate in this game without spending $3,000, because then you're really limiting how many people are using it, and it's just people trading around their own money at that point. And so like people talk about ape being the currency that runs this game, but like what are you spending it on? Like what, you've already spent $3,000 on a deed. Why do you need to spend more money to play the game and that side of things? So that's the part, like you said, to me, like getting the economics of this down is in a way harder than the tech of the game to me, because that's what really brings down a lot of these games in the NFT world, and that's what has been. So to me, I think it'll be interesting to see how they go about that. Like, why spend 300 ETH on a coda? How is it going to bring you back $1 million worth of value? Because I mean, you're spending $500,000 on one item. You got to hope that it brings you that much value. So maybe their thought with watching the boss battle is maybe you get payouts in ape, like people pay to fight you or something, things like that. And I don't know, to me it's just the economics, like you said, is a little off, for this to be a functional game, whether or not, because the gameplay itself was pretty smooth. Like everything I watched, I saw a couple streams, that I mean, the game worked smoothly, but will the game itself be something that appeals to the masses?
Yeah, I mean, you make incredibly valid points on all this. I will say one takeaway from this weekend is that codas are going to be very important in the other side and in this world. I'm a bit surprised codas haven't started moving up a bit. They're holding a 20.7 ETH floor. Mutants are at 18.5. Personally, I don't understand the mutant trade over a coda trade right now. I feel like codas have significantly more upside.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a little bit surprising to me. But yeah, again, we just still don't have. There's so much information we don't have, about how this whole world and ecosystem is going to work. And that's what the Yuga team does. They kind of keep everyone in the dark until they turn the lights on. But I think another takeaway from this weekend is we didn't get any roadmap announcements for the BAYC ecosystem. Mecha Dogs are supposed to be coming, per that leaked roadmap. It's past mid-July now.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time we heard anything about the BAYC roadmap, right? Other than speculation. I mean, since before other deeds, and that wasn't even on the roadmap, right?
Yeah, I think
the 3D models.
That's where the
maybe?
Mecha Dogs where the Kennel Dogs pumped here recently. People thought, I don't know, did July have Mecha Dogs on it? I think people
August, I think.
Okay, so I think people were looking at it for the Mecha Dogs, but yeah, like you said, I don't know about anything else. Like there was the Jimmy whatever, wasn't there like a treasure hunt that was supposed to happen? Was that what they did at the demo? The first trip was part of a roadmap, I guess you could call it, with the Voyager's journey. So that was planned, but yeah, I think a lot of people expected a new announcement, which didn't particularly happen with this one. But I do think the demo went smoothly. It didn't, similar to Clonex, like it didn't move the needle on a bunch of these things. The other floor went up to 3 while it was happening, then it dipped back to 2.7. So a lot of these are still just short term. The thing is, like, people are hopping in, momentum buyers are hopping in as these things are moving, and then are quick to dump them for 0.1 loss or whatever, instead of holding them long term, which that's another thing. Like there's 90,000 of these that other people could list below you, and even though this is the most liquid project in the entire market, and it has been since it's been out for two months now, and 3 months, right? Wasn't there a stat they just hit $1 billion in secondary revenue?
I missed that, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I want to say that they just hit $1 billion in secondary revenue volume from all of the sales. So I mean it's
there it
very
is.
liquid.
Wow.
Yes. Now this is the 7th project ever, and it did so in a couple months.
Right.
Where I mean, you can see that like 23,000 buyers. That was it. Like CryptoPunks, they're halfway to CryptoPunks, and they're going to pass Top Shot here
Yeah,
soon.
they're going to flip Top Shot this week.
Yeah. Haven't got art blocks yet, and the way art blocks are moving right now, it might take a while, but it'll be really interesting when they pass the mutants. They'll probably pass the mutants in a few months here. They're about 500 million behind, so yeah, it'll just be like interesting watching this other deed market play out. Now that this was the big event, this was the first one, but this was like the big event for the past month. People have marked this day on their calendar, and business as usual right after, it seems. People like it got to the point where I was debating on muting the word other side on Twitter on Saturday because it was the entire feed. But I think that's good. Like it should be the entire feed. People are excited about it, that it was working. People without any of the ecosystem were saying, okay, that actually does look like a legit game. And that's the part that's bullish about it. But to me, it's like you need millions of users, like something like a Fortnite, League of Legends, these like true big games that have worldwide appeal. They have more than 4,500 users at the same time. So while it is an exciting number in this short time frame, I do think long term, like how can you appeal to masses is going to be the big thing. Not like a struggle for them, but I do think that that's going to be the thing to watch for the next like month or two ahead of whenever their next trip is going to be, the second trip, or if they give out more info on Codas or Mecha Dogs here in the short term. So
or are we going to get some info? Like now, there's nothing on the schedule, right?
Right. It's
this
like
was the big
the
demo.
Moonbirds Wednesday, and then it's like, then what? There's this short mini bowl happening, but like outside of art blocks.
There's supposed to be an ApeCoin DAO proposal for staking, I want to say. That's supposed to go to vote soon. And that's an interesting one to watch. So, I mean, alts have been running with ETH up, but Ape has had, a really good week. We see, it peaked at 25 before the launch. Of course, it's fallen off 80%. But on the week, it's up from 450 to 575, up 30%. So it's been a solid week. Oh, it went past 6. Wow, I missed that.
Yeah. So, this is one that generally moves with Ethereum, I've noticed. So that is part of it. Yeah, it's good to see. Like that was one thing we talked about last week, which, we were basically saying maybe the move is buy the token versus these other deeds. Because, I mean, 30% increase, but then the other deeds are down 10%. So it kind of worked in that sense. And I think part of it is just like the selling pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it was the trade. I mean, let's look at the board, right? Apes are down 6% on the week. Other deeds are down 2%. Mutants are down 8%. The coin's up 30%. So ApeCoin was the play. I think it's a little trickier to buy in right now after the 30%. Of course, it's all going to be dependent on ETH and kind of what the macro does.
Right. Like how much of that is just because ETH is up 30%? Yeah, probably most of it, but
definitely something to watch. And that's another interesting, lowest entry point way to play this ecosystem. And if you believe in the ecosystem long term, I mean, Ape is a good bet because they've been pretty clear that ApeCoin is going to be the currency.
Yeah, cool. So then let's talk quickly about the CryptoPunks, which were the other big ones on the week, where Bored Apes were pretty flat to somewhat down, but punks are up to 85 ETH now. And I think on Friday at the time of that big ape sale, they were 78 or so. So people are back into this, and it's interesting because now the price point, we went from, even like a week ago, there were no PFPs that had 100,000 USD floor. Now we're back to having 2 of them.
Yep.
As the punks pumped up here. So 2 of the top 6 sales ever in Ethereum terms happened over the past week. Discounts in USD terms compared to all the others that are on this board. These are the only 2 that are sub $4 million in USD.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually the ape there at 10 was, but either way, like specifically apes, and I wonder if that was connected to just comparing them to Bored Apes, but there was another couple that cowboy ape had a 4,000 bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen some of the bigger bids. Deepak was talking about potentially getting a new alien, which it'll be interesting to see how you were to acquire that.
Right.
But yeah, this one has an offer of 4,000 ETH on it right now.
That's
It's
its
gone now.
list price. I don't think that's a bid. It's offered for 4,000.
It's saying come and get it.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see if that one sells. The aliens, obviously, when those sell, it's a big deal. I think Perugia is up there for like 10,000 ETH. He had like tweeted about it, trying to get the top sale ever in ETH terms. But yeah, I mean, it's saying there's not that many listed on the high end, and you had made the point that you could argue that the Punk's market cap is higher now, even though the floor is lower. Generally speaking, people don't consider that a flippening, but that was sort of the lead onto this video was will Punks flip back over apes? Because it seems like people are getting back to this long-term art history. Maybe Punks are where it's at, even if they're from Yuga. Yuga hasn't really done anything with them specifically yet. I wonder if they were to say some benefit with other side that'll change things. But I know you had a tweet about this. So when are Punks going to actually flip these apes now? They're 10 ETH behind. It's getting close.
It's getting close. I think last week I tweeted mid-August, August 15th was my over-under. I'm on the under now, baby. I think it's July.
If it's to happen, it's probably happening sooner than that. Yeah.
I mean, this weekend was really telling for me. So, we saw the huge sale on Friday, 26.90. And then, I don't know, I didn't feel like I noticed that many sales. And then I kind of checked the sales bot, and they were like 50 plus. And then the floor was up in the 80s.
Yeah,
and so, I mean, it just jumped 10%. And there are like no good punks under 100 anymore. So, like, if you look at the board, it's more of the floor trades that are available, which is another telling stat. So, I mean, this is like the classic cycle. We see the huge sales up top. Then we see the mid-tier, the good mid-tier start to reprice. We've seen that with, pilots have been moving. The 3Ds and hoodies are on fire. So hoodies are back at 320. And I think 3Ds are at 150. Well above, from a supply standpoint, the trades around them. So those are absolutely taking off right now. And then, those just pull the floor up. And then what happened last summer is the floor ran, and then the mid-tiers got too cheap with respect to the floor. So they jumped up. And then the cycle continued. Of course, there were some big whale purchases and buys in there. But I think another really important stat is this one. So NFT Statistics tweeted this morning, the ETH charts for punks versus the US dollar charts. So here is the chart in ETH. And as you can see, it definitely spiked last August, was well above 100 still in October. Fell to 50, went back up, saw 45 at the bottom, and now it's, back to 85. But, it feels like it's not really that far from all-time high, right? Like this, looking at this chart, this doesn't seem like, generational buy opportunity. It feels like, okay, it's only down, 30% from highs, whatever. But let's look at the US dollar chart. And like that's where I think there's still so much room to run, right? So these spent months over 400,000.
Floor.
USD floor price.
Yeah.
They fell to 200,000. They kind of consolidated at 200, then like capitulated, fell below 100. Famously 45, and now we're back to 120. But they're still 75% off all-time high in US dollar terms. So I mean, buyers see that, they're smart. This is a top tier NFT. NFTs is kind of proven now that they survived, a bad capitulation event. Seems like they're here to stay. There's not really much going on in DeFi right now. Punks are the best NFT. They're still not that expensive in US dollar terms. I think we're going to get back above 200K this summer at least.
Yeah. I think that's a good take. And it just seems like the people that have been on the sidelines and are maybe somewhat of whales that have bigger bags, whether it's in ETH or USD terms, are looking at this as, and I'm not trying to call it a bottom or anything, but discounted. It definitely, like, even looking at that chart, like, look how much cheaper it is. And I think some people started realizing that, and that's what started this, is people were saying, wow, I mean, Punk's under 50 ETH, and ETH is also under $1,200. Like, seems like a no-brainer at this point. And some of that is, because you just saw them at 400K. Like,
Right.
should they even be worth 50K? There's the argument on that side, but there are people that took that chance and clearly have gotten rewarded for it. So, I'm not someone that's necessarily, I'm not like in the punk market or anything, but if you were to buy Punk right now, would you be looking to try to do one of the mid range or just buy a floor?
Ooh, great question. I mean, the best trade almost always is to buy floors. They're the most liquid. You're going to get likely the most upside. Of course, that's never what I do. The mid tiers are way more fun.
And I think with Punks, it's a little different. Like, the people don't want the floors when it's going down, but people might still want certain of these traits. Like, it depends on what the trait was. Like, I have certain traits that I think I'd prefer. Like, to me, the 3D trait at 150 could be somewhat cheap. Just when you're comparing it to like the hoodie is twice that. So there are some of these traits that, like, the normal beard black, that less likely to me is something that, unless it's at the floor, I'd be buying. I'm not buying 20 ETH over the floor for that trait, but I think there's certain traits that people recognize certain punks, like hoodie and 3D glasses is D's, like with the pipe. Like, people recognize certain traits and they're specific to punks, like the VR, things like that. So to me, I think I would look above floor if you could find deals. And also, as Dickens is saying, it depends. Like, are you going to be using this? If you're just trying to flip it, then probably just floors. But if this is something you're trying to identify yourself with and use as a PFP on internet, then, like, to me, I'd rather find one that's at a decent price that's not floor, and that's specific to this collection. I don't think I would do that for Bored Apes, though. Like, Bored Apes, I'd buy a floor that's not Crazy Eyes, but I'd probably do floor for that, because they've shown, and this is one thing people have talked about, like, Bored Apes haven't really given anything to different rarities.
Right.
Like, the idea that we talked about last week with, should Bored Apes, the gold ones, go for over 1,000 ETH, because they're not. And part of that is because they get the same thing that those Crazy Eyes are getting. So the utility NFT idea.
But yeah, and that's going to continue to probably be a differentiator between the sets. But man, look, going mid-tier trade shopping for punks is fun.
Yeah,
that is a fact. So that's a fun market to be in for those who have bags of ETH. I know it would go fast for me.
Cool. So I wanted to one last thing to talk about a little bit here is the art blocks. So the one today, it sold out at that 0.4. We have some other ones coming up as well. Curated is back. I think we can say that. after last week's. We didn't really talk too much about it yet, but do you expect this Metro Pixel Land? That's one that I was looking at. We could talk about the Squares one as well. That one's not curated though, right? It's factory.
They're both factory.
Oh, okay. I thought Metro Pixel was curated, but I guess not. So are either of these two appealing to you? I think I have an idea of which of them I'd be interested in, but we have these on Wednesday and Friday this week.
Yeah, I think I led my weekly preview with these two just because this is such a light week for new projects. And I think that's going to increase the attention on these. So that supply metric is so important on these projects. So Squares has a great looking supply at 196. The challenge for Squares, one of them, I'll put aesthetics aside for right now, is the resting price is 0.2, which is on the high side for factory. But with this supply, I don't think they're going to have any issues selling it out. Once we see a little bit more variety in the set, and I haven't really dug in on this one yet, it'll be more clear if this one's going to go above 0.2 or stay there. I think today's mint was really interesting. It was Playground. It was 400 supply. A lot of the chatter, a lot of the concern in the Artblocks Discord was all the flippers are here, botters are here. This is going to go way too high. Then we'll see the Dutch auction on secondary. Well, everyone, used restraint, and it minted out at below 0.4 in the mid 0.3 range, which for a product of 400 supply, Playground from a curated artist, that felt like a fine outcome.
Even higher than normal for Playgrounds.
And I haven't had a chance to. I guess let's check in on.
And I think I might have said that last week that it's somewhat of a heat check. This one, because Playgrounds don't generally do well, so this is about mint price right now.
Yeah, so heat check's a good word. So it's basically everyone's even on this one with likely a bit. Let's see what kind of high end sales we've had.
That was one thing with the curated set. There weren't really high sales.
Yeah, so nothing 0.88, 0.77, so nothing too crazy. So you saw a little bit, of a rare lotto, but you're able to get your investment back for the most part right now. So I think this is a good outcome. It'll show, hey, like Artblocks aren't just always going to be a smash success, right? So maybe it does drop attention a little bit, but Squares is definitely going to mint out with the 196 supply. I think closer to the bottom. Metro Pixel Land is interesting because I think it's definitely the artistic style that I think people will like it. It's easy to appreciate. It's got like the Lego vibe in a lot of ways. We've seen similar like real estate or real world projects like this before. It has a 0.1 final price, which is nice, certainly as an entry point. So I think people are going to show up for this one.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's twice the supply, maybe it mints out higher than Square. I don't know. We'll have to see kind of how the community sentiment is.
Yeah, I think this is the one that appeals to me a little more. The Squares might be too basic. Depends on like that first one that we looked at. Like I don't know. It seems like one that would be mostly flippers getting into. This one, I think, has the art that appeals to a lot more people as far as the Artblocks collectors. So I could see this one. It's also on a Friday. Could help it going into the weekend. More people around to pay attention to it. And, hopefully it does go at the lower floor of the Dutch. But it seems like at this point, I don't know. Like we saw it earlier today. Like if people want this and are trying to get in on Artblocks, I think they're firing away before that bottom at this point. Yeah. So in that sense, the true bottom of this might be like 0.25, 0.3 when people start going with only 450. Like it doesn't take much to mint it out at that count. And I like it because like in the past, it used to be 1,000. A lot of these. Oh, yeah. And the smaller it is now. Like it goes a lot faster once it starts. But they have the constantly lowering Dutch, so that helps as well. So
And
these are the ones to look.
And it really seems like the rankings right now are curated factory playground.
Yeah.
And part of that is playground it's from a curated artist, but we've already seen sets from them. Factory is always new artists, some of which go on to do curated sets, some of which are known on other platforms. So you're getting their Genesis project and usually at a cheaper entry. And on the secondary market, which I've been following pretty closely, most of the focus this past week has been in lower count aesthetic factory projects. And we've been seeing some sweeps, been seeing some runs over there. So I think today's playground mechanics and buy pressure, I think maybe use that as an input, but it doesn't necessarily reflect what we're going to see in the factory drops. I think it is my point. And I think we might see more action.
Cool. So is there anything else that you're looking forward to this week?
Again, it's a light week. There's a few other drops on the LT calendar. There's a few reveals. So Megami, Kingship are revealing here tomorrow.
Nickelodeon could be an interesting one.
Nickelodeon, for anyone who's got Recur following that project.
They have their auctions, which a lot of them. Yeah. Because it depends on what you consider high. The highest one was like 7 point something that I saw. I'm not sure if there were any that went above that, but no one's listed under 10 ETH yet. So the people that got them seem to want to hold them for a little bit. But yeah, a lot of them were going for at least 2 in the bidding process. I think the Hey Arnold one went for 5 and change, and then the Helga went for like 7 something. So it's kind of interesting to see which ones went for more than others. There was a few good ones in there. So it was nice to see that people went out and put in for those 12. I think there was 12 total, the sort of genesis of these Nickelodeon. But it's going to be a set of 10,000 at $50 each, which is pretty cheap. It's basically
so
free mint.
0.03 ETH now with ETH ripping. So yeah, that's going to be a big one. And there's a couple others that have like 100,000 plus followers on Twitter. So Citizens of Tajidin, I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Yeah, I thought that one had already released. Did it not? I recognize the name.
I think that's still coming.
That one could do well after the Megami one.
But. Yeah, Mystics is interesting. So it's 5,000 supply at 0.69. If you look at their art, has definitely got a little bit of Invisible Friends vibe to it from some of the previews I saw. The characters look similar. The supply count is the same. Of course, we know how that project did. But I think what's interesting is on their Magic Map, their roadmap, this is their first project of 3. So it's going to be the Mystics, then the Web3 Skate Crew coming in Q3, and then the Arcade coming in Q4.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a drop that might get you in the door for future ones. People will take note of that. 0.069, relatively low entry point. People are kind of tired of the free mints, looking more at products. They don't mind paying, a sub 0.1 mint price for what looks to be a real project. It's not just going to be a 2-hour hype window.
Yeah,
that just immediately goes to 0. So yeah, I think that the Citizens and Mystics are going to be 2 primary ones to watch here this week, and then of course I'm sure we'll get some stealth drops along the way.
Yeah, the Mystics I think is definitely an interesting one, as you mentioned. Like Scrolls did kind of well this past week, and I think it's because it was a 0.055. We've talked about this before, where there's like thresholds, and I think right now people are a little more willing to spend money. So the 0.05 might be a good range, so to speak, of where to mint. And instead of these free mints that they come out 0.01 and then there's just tons of listings right there, the ones that start a little higher, people are more willing to hold on to a little longer and think about like the fees attached on selling. So I think it's likelier to hit that 0.1 threshold. And once it hits the 0.1, it's more likely to stay over 0.1. So I can see this one working out as well. It'll be a good one to watch this weekend after Moonbirds and all that sort of thing that we were talking about earlier. So the art blocks, Mystics, the Citizens of Tajian, I think it is. So few things, but as mentioned, like not a ton. So it might benefit them with having less options at that time. So cool. I think these are going to be interesting ones to watch and see if we are truly trending towards a mini bull here. This is the week, I think, to know.
Yep.
So cool. And then we'll be back on Thursday, our normal time of 4 p.m. And by then, hopefully we'll have information on oddities and what the Silver Nest brings. But based on what these other projects have been doing recently, it might just be more questions. We'll know at least what they look like and if there's big sales, things like that. So good luck out there. We'll catch you guys on Thursday. Back for some more.